Chronic pain is this huge problem. For millions, it's not just a signal that you've hurt yourself, it's a constant, life-changing reality. But what if the key to turning it off isn't where the injury is at all? A really fascinating new study in Nature Neuroscience suggests the answer might be about resetting the brain itself. So let's get into it. So let's start with the big question. Where does chronic pain really live? We tend to think, okay, it's in my back, or it's my knee, wherever the original problem was. But this new research completely challenges that idea. It suggests that after a while, the pain stops being just a symptom. It becomes its own thing, taking up residence somewhere else entirely.
And yeah, you guessed it, and that somewhere else is the brain. The study presents this incredible idea. Chronic pain actually evolves. It goes from being a simple signal of injury to becoming a condition of the brain. The pain is no longer just a message, it's the new default setting, hardwired into your neural circuits.
And this is where things get really complicated. The research confirms something millions of people already know from experience. Chronic pain is almost never just physical. It gets all tangled up with our emotions. You end up in this vicious cycle where the pain makes you anxious and depressed, and then that emotional distress actually makes the pain feel even worse. The scale of this is it's staggering. We are talking about 50 million Americans living with chronic pain right now. To put that in perspective, that's more people than the entire population of California. Every single one of them is potentially caught in this loop, which is exactly why we need new ways to treat not just the physical side, but the emotional side too.
So how would you even begin to break that cycle? Well, the researchers zoomed in on one very specific part of the brain, the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC. Now, this area is super interesting because it wears two hats. It's the hub that processes the emotional side of pain, the suffering, but it also helps regulate our mood. And in chronic pain, it seems like this critical hub just goes completely haywire.
The researchers had this perfect analogy for what's going on. Think about it, acute pain, like when you touch a hot stove, is like a smoke detector going off. It's a useful alarm telling you there's a fire. But with chronic pain, the fire is out. The original injury might be long gone, but that smoke detector just keeps blaring. The brain's alarm system, the ACC, is basically stuck in the on position. And they could actually see this happening. This isn't just a metaphor. They looked at the brains of mice with chronic pain and found that the neurons in this ACC region were firing about 40% more often than in healthy mice. It's a real, measurable hyperactivity. That alarm is literally, physically stuck on. Okay, so if the problem is a stuck brain circuit, how do you reset it? This is where the team tried something, pretty surprising. They used a single dose of psilocybin, the compound from magic mushrooms, to see if it could flip that switch back off. The timeline for this experiment is just so striking. So first, they gave mice a condition that causes chronic nerve pain. For almost a month, 27 days, the mice were suffering. Then, on day 27, they get one dose of psilocybin. And get this, just one day later, their symptoms were reversed. And what's really incredible is that this relief lasted all the way to the end of the experiment, on day 40. The change in their behavior was like night and day. Before the dose, the mice were hypersensitive to touch, and they showed behaviors that look a lot like anxiety and depression in humans. They'd hide, they'd give up easily. After that one dose, their pain sensitivity went back to normal, and they started acting like healthy mice again, exploring their environment freely. So this leads to the million-dollar question. Right? How did one dose have such a huge and lasting effect? The answer seems to be that it went right to the source and reset that overactive alarm center, the ACC. This chart shows the whole story. It's the critical finding. When they looked at the ACC's activity, they saw the reset happen basically in real time. Remember that 40% hyperactivity? Within minutes of applying the drug directly to the ACC, the firing rate of those neurons just dropped right back down to the normal healthy baseline. It didn't just quiet the alarm, it completely reset it. Now, to be absolutely sure this was all happening in the brain, they ran a really clever test. When they injected the compound right into the ACC, boom, pain relief. But when they injected the same compound down near the spinal cord, closer to the actual injury, nothing. No effect at all. This was proof that the relief was coming from rebalancing the brain's command center, not from numbing the injury site. But the way it works is actually more elegant than just shutting down neurons. It's not a sledgehammer. It's much more like a very specific key, or actually, it's more like a lock that needs two different keys to be turned at the exact same time. This table breaks it down perfectly.
So psilocybin works on two specific serotonin receptors, called 5-HT2A and 5-HT1A. When it activated both, the mice felt better. But look what happened next. If the scientists blocked the 2A receptor, so only the 1A was working, no relief. And if they blocked the 1A, so only the 2A was working, still no relief. You absolutely have to turn both keys at once.
And here's maybe the most fascinating part of all. Psilocybin is only a partial activator of these receptors. It gives them a gentle nudge. When the scientists tried using other drugs to just blast one of the receptors at full power, it didn't work. The real magic was in that specific, gentle, simultaneous nudge to both receptors. It's all about restoring balance with finesse, not overwhelming the system with brute force.
Okay, so these findings are obviously incredibly exciting, but it is so important to remember this was all done in mice. So the biggest question now is, what could this actually mean for people? Let's talk about the implications.
When you see results this dramatic, it is so easy to jump to the conclusion that this is some kind of miracle cure. But the researchers themselves are very clear. It is way too early to say that. We have to be really cautious and look at the study's limitations.
So here are the big ones. First, this was in mice. Human pain is way more complex. It involves psychology, our life experiences, the whole 9 yards. Second, the pain in these mice was created suddenly, which is different from pain that develops over years. And finally, a 40-day follow-up is pretty short. We have no idea about long-term effects or safety in humans. This is really just the first step on a very long road. But this brings us to what is, for me, the most mind-bending takeaway from this entire study. At the end of the 40 days, the scientists looked at the mice, and the physical nerve damage was still there. The psilocybin didn't heal the body. What it did was change how the brain interpreted the signals coming from that still injured area. It fundamentally rewired the experience of pain itself. And that right there, that points to a huge shift in how we think about treating pain. For decades, the goal has been to just block pain signals at the source. But maybe, just maybe, the future of pain relief isn't about blocking signals at all. Maybe it's about retuning the brain that's listening to them, rebalancing the entire system from the top down, and changing our relationship with pain for good.